Hi everybody and welcome to Code Karate and another edition of the Daily Dose of Drupal. Today we are on episode 163, making our way to 200. This is a second part to it's a second part series or video to an earlier part on building a custom view and using JavaScript and CSS to switch between a grid view and a list view. I'll provide in the comments below a link back to the other video. But today we're going to be using JavaScript to change classes so we can then style and change between a list and a grid view. To give you an idea again, if you're not familiar with the first video, this is what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to be able to switch between a list view and a grid view all within the same view on Drupal. So that's what we're going to do at the end. But today, again, we're just focusing on being able to switch. If you see there's a grid view here, switch between that and a list view so we can then use CSS as the styling and then change the outlook of the view. So that's what we're going to be doing here in the next minute. Before we get started though, again, Code Karate, make sure to check out our ebook. Do yourself a favor there and get that for yourself. You can also follow myself and Shane on Twitter. I'm at Adam Laring and Shane is at smthomas3. Appreciate that. Alright, well let's get started. Again, this is the second series. In the first series we did go through building the content type and the view. So we'll start by looking at the view that we built. So here's the view, simple, very simple view. We're just pulling in the different fields for the content type, title, body, height, picture, weight, and then a custom text field which we're using to override the output. So there you can see how we are displaying it. I built this custom, so we're just using the different replacement patterns for the fields. So now that we have the view built, and you saw that when we first started, one thing we need to do is we need to add a trigger to be able to switch between a list and a grid view. That can easily be done by just adding in header text into the view. I've kind of cheated and done a little bit of this before I got started with the video, but I'm going to walk you through what I did. So all I did is I made a simple div with a couple A-links inside. So you see here I have a A-link with a class of table and then an A-link with a class of list. These are going to be my two triggers that switch between obviously a table and a list view. Nothing really revolutionary about that HTML, but just something that we can actually click on. So the other thing that you'll want to do, and this is just how I built my JavaScript, you don't necessarily have to do it this way, you could build your own JavaScript, but if you're following along, you'll want to make sure you add course view as a class on the view. And this is just adds right onto the right on the wrapper of on the view, so we'll just have a class of course view that we can use to call from. So that's the only additional changes you need to make to your view to get this to work. So once you save your view, I will show you what it should look like, at least via HTML. Maybe I can get my developer tools to pull up. There we go. Oops. There we go. Alright, so in the HTML here, you'll be able to see here's that header I put in. So again, just a simple div with a class of table and a class of list. Also, you'll see right here is the course view class that I added. And again, we're just using that to call the view. Nothing else pertinent there. Okay, so now let's hop over to our JavaScript file. Again, I did a little bit of work here before you, just because I don't want to waste time watching me type. But I added on all the JavaScript that we'll need to make this work. And again, I'll add this in the post so you can, if you want, you can just copy and paste it directly and use it for your own sites. But I will walk you through here quickly what's going on. One thing to note is I'm using just a Zen sub-theme for my JavaScript stuff. But make sure, again, if you do Zen, that you comment out the or uncomment the scripts. It initially comes uncommented, otherwise you can't use your scripts.js file, and that'll frustrate you because it won't read in. Alright, but once that's done, you save it. Make sure you're aggregating JavaScript and all that stuff so it actually does read in. But once you master all those little easy techniques, we get to the JavaScript. So for those of you who are not too familiar with JavaScript, I'm going to walk you through this. Bear with me if you are familiar, or just skip along and get to the point where you need to learn something. But in general here, what's going on is we're saying for the JavaScript to look at the content, and once you find this course view class, and that's where I put that course view on the view. So once you find that, if the view class, and I'll jump over here back to my thing. So if this view class right here has a class of course view, which it does, so we added, then you want to add a class to the view of Gridview. So that's basically when the page loads, before anything happens, this is what the Gridview will be loaded. So as you see, if I refresh the page here, you'll see now that there's a grid view added, because what's going on is it's saying if the view has a class of course view, which it does, so it checks that, then we're going to add a class to the view of grid view. So there you go. So now we can obviously use that to style based on, and I'll show you that in the next video, but now we have a unique class that separates us from a list versus a grid view. So let's take it one step further. So now that we have the grid view this, what if I click on list? Do I need this grid view to switch to list view? So that's what's going on here. So if I click list, so again in my view header, you'll see here if I click list, or this button right here, a tag, then I need to do this. I need to say if the class has a grid view, which it does, if view has grid view, then I need to add the list view class, and then immediately after I need to remove the grid view class. So when I click this list view, if you look down right here at this grid view, you'll see the grid view will go away and list view will take its place. And there it goes. So what's happening again is we're adding a class of list view and immediately removing class of grid view. So there's two things going on there, but they happen so fast that we can't tell. So then if I click, whoops, wrong button there. If I go back to my JavaScript and say, so now I'm on list view, but now I want to go back to grid view, we just drop down a little bit further. It says if I click table, it's right here, then if it has class list view, which it does, right, then do the exact opposite thing, right? We're going to add the class of grid view and then remove class of list view. So we click table, and there we go. Switches back to grid view versus list view. And obviously I can switch back and forth, and then of course once I add styling, which you'll see in this third video, we'll be able to do this, like you said. We'll be able to switch the output. So it looks like we have two separate views, but the secret is it's all running off the same view. We're just using CSS to display different outputs. Alright, I think that's what I wanted to cover, all I wanted to cover in this. Again, I'm going to provide you with this code in this post on episode 163. And then on episode 164, we're actually going to take you through how to change the styling with some CSS. Nothing too crazy. Obviously, you can feel free to do your own unique stylings and stuff like that. But that's what we'll cover in episode 164. I think everything else is covered. I'm just thinking, yeah. So that should work for today. Again, what we covered is we just covered a way to build the JavaScript to be able to switch between two different classes, so then we can use CSS as our styling agent. So I think that's it. Alright guys, until episode 164, take care.